Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Hit the Deck How To. Now if you're a hockey player, I can almost guarantee that this has or will at some point happen to you. This is unfortunate because hockey sticks are expensive, and as a result they are expensive to replace when the blade breaks. If only there was some way to salvage this otherwise completely serviceable hockey stick. Ow, wait, what is... a blade. Well, that's unrealistically convenient. Yes, so what we are going to do on today's film here is that I am going to take this blade, this ABS blade, which was pretty cheap. I got this on Amazon, and I am going to put it on this stick. So that way I will have a usable hockey stick, and I will not have to go out and buy a very expensive hockey stick to replace it. Now, a few caveats before we get started. First, this is an ABS blade. It's not going to be quite as good a blade as, a regular blade that you might get when you buy a hockey stick fresh. It's not going to be as, nice and useful as a wooden blade or a composite blade or anything like that. This I would recommend for your backup stick or a practice stick. Something, maybe it's not your A stick, but it's certainly a serviceable B stick. The second caveat that I'm going to go with is that these things do wear out pretty quickly, at least on like a street surface, a concrete surface, like what I play on normally. This blade that you can see here used to be this. So if I line it up, you can see just how much of this blade got lost through the course of play for, I don't know, maybe 6 months of play. I don't remember exactly how long it was that I switched this off. But yeah, these things do take a beating on a concrete surface, but for $5 or $10 or whatever you can get it for, it's not bad, and they're pretty easy to replace. So the third caveat is this is a wooden stick. Knock on wood. This is a wooden stick, not like a fiberglass or anything like that. So this is pretty basic. If you're looking for an NHL caliber stick, or even an ice stick, necessarily, you're not going to want to do this. This is just a recreational stick, pretty low end. So, this isn't, like I said, this isn't going to be your A stick, but this is going to be a stick that you can use for just messing around, or if your A stick does happen to break, you can grab this one off the bench and you're still pretty much good to go. So what do you say we get started and I show you how easy it is to replace one of these babies? Okay, now the first thing you're going to want to do is measure out where you want your cut line to be, because we are going to be doing some cutting. And the easiest way to do that, it's not an exact science. It involves a little bit of measurement and a little bit of guesswork, but mostly it's just kind of getting a feel for it. So you're going to want to line up, or at least I'm going to want to line up the inside curve of this blade with the inside curve of what's left of the old blade. Now, if you do have that much blade left, that's easy. If not, you're just going to have to guesstimate how long you want the blade to be. So I'll line this up here. It's not going to be exact because it's a slightly different curve, I think, than what the old blade was, but we're going to put it right there. Now, you're going to be tempted to want to make your line here at the edge of the blade. That is going to be a mistake, because the way that this works is the shaft slides into this plastic kind of receptacle, this plastic channel that you can use right there. So what you are going to want to do is make the line actually down here where you can see the bottom of the channel is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just mark off a line right there, and I'm using this silver marker that I got just for this purpose, I got it on Amazon, very cheap. If you have a speed square like this, that will make this so much easier, because you will guarantee yourself a straight line. But if you do not, you can be very careful, and you can just use a ruler or some other straight edge and make a 90-degree line here. This is going to be our cut line. So that is the line that we are cutting the shaft of this blade on so that we can then properly insert it into this thing. All right, so now we have the fun part, the cutting. So normally I wouldn't be doing it from this angle. I am doing it this way for your visibility. Hopefully I can get a pretty clean cut nonetheless. You can see I'm using this miter saw, this compound miter saw here, and that is probably the easiest way to do this, also known as a chop saw. If you happen to be working with one of these regularly, that's what you might know it as. So yeah, this is probably the easiest way to do it. I have also done this type of work before with just a hand circular saw. So that one you can definitely use. You just have to be a little more careful about making sure you have a straight cut. It's a little slower and a little more careful work, but you can definitely do it that way. However, I have this machine, so I am going to use it. And this is actually the first time I'm using this. I got this recently as a Christmas present. So I'm very excited to baptize it in this way. You want to make sure that you're cutting along the outside of the cut line and not the inside. It's not that big a deal, but you know, you want to make sure you're cutting it correctly. So here we go. Cover your ears. Oh, look at that. That's a beautiful cut. That is a nice cut, nice clean cut, and that should slide into the channel beautifully. So let's see how it works, shall we? Incidentally, the type of blade that we're using is a Franklin Shot Zone. That's what you're going to want to search for on Amazon or at your local sporting goods store if you're interested in using this. There may be some other types of this kind of blade, but this is the one that I found most readily available and pretty cheap. So this is what we're going to use. So here's how it works. It slides, as you can see. There is the channel here. That's what's going to go over the blade. That's what's going to go over the shaft here. So you slide it on there. Might need a little finesse, but you should be able to get it down. And there we are. What I wound up having to do is grab it and lean on it a little bit. You might want to use a mallet. You might want to use the method that I use. Whatever you use, eventually it will go down because it is sized properly for one of these shafts. But, you know, you want a nice, solid, tight fit. So it's not going to go quietly. Now, the way it affixes to the shaft is not glue. It's via these screws here. 2 screws, one on either side, and you can see the holes. One there and one there, so they don't go into the same area of the wood. Now, sometimes, depending on the type of wood you have, you might want to use a small pilot bit to drill a small pilot hole in the wood to make sure it doesn't crack when you put it in. I am fairly confident that I'm going to be able to just screw it in. Definitely use a screwdriver and not a drill, like a screw gun, because that is probably going to damage the wood and might damage the screw as well. So you want to take your time, just put it in there nice and slow, and as you can see, and then we just get to screwing and screw and screw, and it doesn't actually take that long. So I'm just going to screw it down there. Yep. I am listening for any sounds of cracking. I don't hear any, which means the wood is not splitting, which is great because that's what we want. And that's one side, and do the other, and just put that in there, and screw, and screw, and screw, and I know this makes for great video. But voila, Bob's your uncle. There we are. You can see we have this nice solid, that's not going anywhere, that blade, and it is pretty as you please. And we're done. That's it. It's really that simple, honestly. For more of this type of stuff, hockey and whatnot, deck hockey, you can check out the Hit the Deck podcast every Friday on Apple Podcast or Stitcher or the Podbean app or right here on YouTube. We usually try and get the podcast up here on YouTube almost as quickly as in all the other places. So just, you know, keep watching. And as for me, the next time I am out there on the deck and I need to be a forward or a defenseman, I will be all set with my trusty backup or even a stick. We'll see what happens. Now, really, the only question remains, what do I do with this? Oh, my poor goalie stick. Thanks, everybody.